What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the TCG Empire YouTube channel. Today we are going over Tech Tuesday. If you're not sure what Tech Tuesday is, this is where we take the deck of the week and we talk about some ways in which you could possibly make the deck better or cards that you can play to improve your matchup against the deck of the week. Now, I will make this kind of quick. I'm not feeling too great, so I do want to just make sure that I get the content out for you guys. But if it's not as enthusiastic as normal, or if it seems quicker, that's just why. The first card we are going to talk about for cards that you could play against Gardevoir to improve your matchup is Alolan Vulpix V-Star. Now, Snow Mirage is a detrimental attack when it comes to playing against Guardy. When it comes down to it, everything in Guardy basically has an ability, so there's no real way that they can actually KO this Alolan Vulpix V-Star, and there's nothing with Shred that's Psychic type that they can play, unless they play the Mewtwo EX. We talked about that in the very first video, so I'm not going to throw it up here again, but most of the time, Snow Mirage should do great things. The only real way that you can get through this is by using the Baby Ralts to force them to not attack with it anymore, but at the same time, they only run one Ralts, so if you get rid of it early and put it in the Lost Zone or something, works great. Next card, Path to the Peak. We all know what this does. This is just to really shut off the engine of what Gardevoir can do. Once they have, a board established, if there's no energy being accelerated, it's really hard for them to come back, so Path is a very solid card for that. The next card, Klefki. Now, Klefki only works against basic Pokemon, but when it comes down to it, with the Klefki, if you start with this, it really shuts down the Gardevoir player, as with the Mischievous Lock, they can't use things like Mew, and they can't use Greninja, which tends to be their early setup. And even in the later game, if they don't have Curly as established, or, their turns are kind of awkward and they need to get rid of energy, they still can't use Greninja, which means you're shutting off one part of their, energy acceleration to the discard as well as draw power, so it can be really good. And then finally we have Panic Mask. We did talk about this last time, but it's still basically relevant. With Panic Mask, you prevent all damage done to the Pokemon that it's attached to by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon that have 40 HP or less. So with this, you can really just kind of use Guardy's effect against it, as with Panic Mask, if they are in a situation where they have under 40 HP by accelerating energy, it means that you're not taking any damage. And for a simple tool card where most Gardevoir lists don't play tool removal, it can actually be very strong. And finally, for the cards that we're going to talk about that you can run in Guardy if you want to improve any matchups, they're a solid list of cards, and I'm going to save the Mewtwo for last, as it kind of works both ways. The first card being Punkaboo. This is a Psychic type, so you can grab it off Fog Crystal and Level Ball, as well as Ultra Ball. So it's pretty much searchable by every type of search that you play. And with Pumpkin Pit, when you play it down, you can get rid of something like a Path to the Peak. But also a cool interaction is the fact that if you run 2 counter stadiums and Punkaboo, as well as Penny and Palpad, you technically have 5 stadium removals, because what you can do is you can play down the Punkaboo to remove a stadium, Penny it back up and play it to remove another one, and then with Palpad you can do the Penny interaction again in order to get another removal off when it comes to the Stadium War. The next card, Espeon VMAX. Espeon VMAX has been seeing some play in Gardevoir lists, at least within Japan. Very solid card, as you can accelerate energy, put it anywhere, and then it prevents all effects of attacks. So this means that things like Sableye become a little bit easier of a matchup, so it's not too critical for you. You can actually kind of deal with the matchup a bit better. It swings it more in your favor, so it's pretty good. The other thing, Tool Jammer. Tool Jammer is just for the annoying things like the Arctina matchup. Arctina can only hit 280, but if they do run the gloves, they can hit for 310, which can KO your Gardevoir EX, which shuts down your consistency. So Tool Jammer might be a card to use and just put it on the Guardy, which means if they bring it up, they can't really do anything to one-shot. And if you also have Espeon in play, the Tool Jammer makes it to where the Espeon can't be KO'd either. And the next card is Vitality Band. Now, most lists do run the Choice Belt, which does add plus 30, but that's only when you're attacking V Pokemon. with the Vitality ban, it means that you can do 10 damage to any Pokemon that you're attacking. And it does become relevant when you're trying to go for things like a one-shot with Gardevoir EX, as with the Vitality ban, it can hit 200, which does KO things like Raikou, especially against Lost Box or Miraidon. And then you can actually make the 220 swing by accelerating 5 energy on to a Zacian, attach the band, and then you're hitting for 220, which KOs opposing Zacian, so it's pretty good. It's not bad at all. And finally, we're going to talk about Mewtwo V-Union. Now, there was 4 pieces, so I'm going to leave them like this, and as I bring them up, we'll start with that. But with the Mewtwo V-Union, it is a psychic Pokemon that can only be played from the bench, or from your discard onto the bench, so it's good fodder for discarding with Kirlia. But you also do have Union Gain, which means that you can attach 2 energy from your discard pile to the Mewtwo, which sets it up so it has no damage. And it also has Super Regeneration, which heals 200 damage. So if you take some weird math numbers, you can usually heal from it and be okay. The next thing is Psy-Splosion, which puts 16 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon, similar to Sableye, but there's no repercussion for it. You don't need anything in the Lost Zone. So you can just put 16 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon, and that means you can KO 2 Comfies and then have 20 damage remaining, and it's just basically good. And finally, you have Final Burn for 300, which does KO everything in the format, aside from VMAXs, but again, if you run the belt or the band, it can be a little bit easier for you. But the biggest thing about it is it does have Photon Barrier, so it's pretty much what the Espeon VMAX does, except it's only for the Mewtwo V-Union, so it means that you're going to be able to prevent all effects of attacks, which means that something like Cramorant is the only thing that's really going to be able to attack you, and there's nothing else that can really one-shot that 310 mark within Lost Box, so it's a really good card. Now, the reason I said it kind of works both ways is because you can also use Psy-Splosion in the mirror match to KO things like 2 Kirlias, or if they power up a Zacian with enough damage to where you can split the math better, you can KO a Kirlia and possibly a Zacian to take 3 prizes. So overall, that's a card that really you can think about running for and against, as it can just kind of work both ways. But either way, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you did enjoy it, smash that like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and I'll catch you guys in tomorrow's What to Buy Wednesday.